Pop the top, it's time for the video to drop. And today, the Booker Man can book what your Booker can't. And today, we're going to be looking at the Raw 6, aka the Smackdown 6 evolved into WWE 2019. Now, for any of you young guns who don't know what the Smackdown 6 was, back in 2002, when the original brand split happened in World Wrestling Entertainment / Federation, whichever one you want to call it, there was a Smackdown 6 after Paul Heyman took over the booking for SmackDown. You had Eddie Guerrero, Chavo Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Kurt Angle, Rey Mysterio, and Edge. You had the Smackdown 6. SmackDown was built off of these 6 men, and it was an absolute banger of a time. Now, the reason why it was a banger of a time, because every episode primarily focused around these 6 superstars. These 6 superstars focused around the United States Championship, the WWE Championship, and the Tag Team Championships. With a little bit of this and a little bit of that sprinkled in between, it turned into an absolute great time. SmackDown 2002 is one of my personal favorite time periods in professional wrestling ever. I think SmackDown 2002 going into 2003 is some of the best wrestling television ever booked at all. As my voice is, a little shaky today. But nevertheless, going into Monday Night Raw following Extreme Rules, we have a very opportune time to look at here in professional wrestling. Why? Because Paul Heyman takes over Monday Night Raw as the executive producer. Now, if Vince McMahon wants to give Paul Heyman everything he can do and not, kibosh stuff, well, I feel like Paul Heyman might want to bring back this insert the brand name here, 6 philosophy for booking. And if I was booking the Raw 6, this is how I do it. Alright, so talking about the Raw 6, we gotta first talk about the SmackDown 6 and what their roles were. So the SmackDown 6 consisted of the 6 men that I talked about earlier, but what were their roles primarily? You had Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero as your established team. They're the team that everyone knew, oh, these are the best at tag team professional wrestling with these 6. Then you have Edge and Rey Mysterio. They were developed as best friends essentially at this time, if not great friends at this time. And then you had Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, who were rivals, yet they also teamed up because they knew at the end of the day, they were the best professional wrestlers on the planet. So, who would be the new SmackDown 6? Who would be the Raw 6? Who would replace these 6 men? Well, I would put for the established team, and this one might surprise you, I would put as the established team, the Viking Raiders. Hanson and Rowe. I don't know their new names. Listen, Ivar and Igor, or what? I don't know their new names. We're going to call them Hanson and Rowe in this video because, me knowing the new names, it ain't going to happen. Hanson and Rowe. Brainwash generation. Represent. But nevertheless, the established team for the Raw 6 would be Hanson and Rowe. Now, my good friends, the guys that help each other out, they save the day sometimes for one another. I would put Ricochet and Cedric Alexander in that part, because I feel like Cedric Alexander is the guy that's going to be brought up the most from this Raw 6. And Ricochet, everybody loves Ricochet. If you don't like Ricochet, you don't like professional wrestling 2019. Let's keep it real. Now, moving forward, the bitter rivals, but they know at the end of the day, they are 2 of the absolute best professional wrestlers on the planet. Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Now, I know what you're thinking. Cesaro and Sami Zayn are both heel currently. Yeah, you're not wrong, but that doesn't mean you can't have 2 rivals while they're both heel at the same point. There's a lot of history to be told with Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Look back at NXT TakeOver. Look back at the very first NXT TakeOver match. Granted, it was called NXT Arrival, but nevertheless, look back at the very first match. It was Cesaro versus Sami Zayn in an absolute barn burner. It set the pace for what the future was going to hold, and the future is now on Monday Night Raw. So Cesaro and Sami Zayn will be the bitter rivals in this Raw 6. Now, how do we get started? How do we get started with the Raw 6? It's a good question. It's a great question. And we get started right after Extreme Rules. Now, at Extreme Rules, the only people that are on this Raw 6 that are actually booked on Extreme Rules are the current United States champion, Ricochet, and Cesaro. Ricochet is, of course, going one-on-one with AJ Styles, defending his United States championship. And in this story, we're going to say Ricochet defeated AJ Styles at Extreme Rules. Now, Cesaro is also competing at Extreme Rules, and he's going to be going one-on-one with Aleister Black. Now, with the build that they've been giving to Aleister Black, I would say, if I was booking, you got to give Aleister Black the win. And that's okay. Cesaro can take the L at Extreme Rules because Monday Night Raw, things turn right back around for him. So, going into this, just know Ricochet is still our United States champion, and Cesaro lost to Aleister Black at Extreme Rules. Now, moving in to the first Raw under the new Heyman era. The way that we start this Raw 6 is actually fairly simple. You have the Viking Raiders defeat a know-nothing team, maybe Hawkins and Ryder, since they were former tag team champions. Granted, we've seen this match before on Raw TV, but you put the Viking Raiders over huge, as they've been doing. So you just put the Viking Raiders over big. No team that needs to be completely squashed. Don't put them against the Revival. Give them somebody like Hawkins and Ryder, maybe another no-name team, maybe a local talent team. I don't know. But you put the Viking Raiders against a team where they can easily take them out and easily show dominance. That's how you get the Viking Raiders over in the very beginning. So you put the Viking Raiders on Raw in that spot. Now, continuing on with Ricochet and AJ Styles, you have the club do dastardly heel things to Ricochet on this episode. You have it. We start the show off, basically, not the show, but we start off the segment with Ricochet backstage, maybe talking to Cedric Alexander, having a little conversation back and forth. And then all of a sudden, you have the club show up, and then Ricochet squares up like, if y'all want to go right now, we can go right now. And then AJ Styles just laughs it off, and they walk away. Later in the night, you can have Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, or AJ Styles going one-on-one with Cedric Alexander, the guy that Ricochet was talking to earlier in the night. Now, if I were booking, which in this scenario I am, we would do AJ Styles versus Cedric Alexander. And guess what? Cedric Alexander would lose here. AJ Styles would go over. Now, I hate this term. I hate the idea that you have to win every match to look great. You don't. You can look amazing. You can look like $1,000,000 in defeat. Cedric Alexander is the prime example of that. The crowd chanted at the Cruiserweight Classic, "Please sign Cedric," after he lost to Kota Ibushi. So that's exactly the type of atmosphere we're going to be trying to bring back to here at this point in Monday Night Raw. AJ Styles and Cedric Alexander, they're going to have a barn burner, an absolute classic on Monday Night Raw. AJ Styles is going to defeat Cedric Alexander with the club at ringside. There's going to be some dastardly tactics, maybe a foot sweep. You know, I don't know. I'm just saying, maybe a foot sweep, maybe something along those lines. But after the match is where things get very interesting here, because you're going to have the club. You're going to have the club all of a sudden start going after Cedric Alexander the same way that they've been going after Ricochet. But that's when, pew, 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 Ricochet's music hits. He sprints down to the ring. He takes all three members out, basically. He maybe gets up on the apron, springboard, European to Carl or Luke. He gets back on his feet, runs towards the rope, springboard cutter, maybe to AJ and Carl if he didn't take them out first. I don't know. I don't really book the in-ring stuff. I just like booking storylines. So, Ricochet takes them out, and then the club's all damaged up on the outside like, oh, we would have got him if it wasn't for you meddling kids. Basically some Scooby-Doo type-ish. And then it establishes that Ricochet and Cedric Alexander are friends here. So that's the type of build you give for that. So not only does AJ Styles still look strong, but you also build up Cedric Alexander and Ricochet as a good team, essentially best friends, or at least friends that help each other out and don't let each other get their asses beat. Now that's going to take us into next week. But still on this first episode of Raw after Extreme Rules, we have Cesaro and Sami Zayn backstage possibly. Cesaro might be having an interview. He might have an interview with Charlie Caruso or somebody. I don't know. And then Cesaro in that interview is talking about how he should not have lost at Extreme Rules. He tries to give an excuse maybe. And then all of a sudden Sami Zayn is, ha, hello, I'm Sami Zayn. I'm very, hoo-hoo. And Sami Zayn does what Sami Zayn does basically. And he gets on TV. He's like, hey, why are you making excuses? You lost. You're a loser. It's okay. Admit that you suck. And then Cesaro's like, what? If you don't get the hell out my face. So basically you're establishing that, hey, Zayn don't like Cesaro. Cesaro don't like Zayn. Now what you could do is you could lead this into a one-on-one match on Monday Night Raw, but you don't want to do that. You don't want to give that away yet. So you're just going to subtly build it here that Cesaro and Zayn do not like each other. And then we're going to go on later in the night. Sami Zayn's going to have a one-on-one match with somebody else on the roster. I don't know. Maybe Eric Young. Somebody that's not doing anything. Maybe No Way Jose. No way Jose. No way. You get the point. So Sami Zayn's going to defeat them. And maybe in the middle of the match, cut backstage to Cesaro watching on the TV. You know how they do. You know. Actually, you know how they do. Just watch. Excuse me. Watch it from this camera angle, just watching right the TV. You know, typical WWE shenanigans. So you're going to be watching the TV like that. And basically you're establishing that Cesaro is studying Sami Zayn because Sami Zayn just came at him earlier in the night. When Sami Zayn picks up the win, maybe Cesaro just gives a subtle nod to going, okay, you won. Now it's my turn. Cesaro immediately heads through Gorilla because they've been doing these type of shots lately where they just keep continuing on the shots. Cesaro goes straight towards Gorilla. His music hits while Sami Zayn's celebrating. Cesaro walks down to the ring, gets into the ring, and we have another match start right then, right there. Cesaro versus whoever we didn't use. If it was Eric Young versus Sami Zayn, then we do No Way Jose versus Cesaro. If it was Cesaro, or if it was Sami Zayn versus No Way Jose, then we do Eric Young versus Cesaro. But nevertheless, Cesaro defeats the other person in quicker fashion than Sami Zayn did. So then Sami Zayn's like, huh, all right, I'll give you that. And then maybe even have Zayn do a little golf clap, maybe. And that's how you establish that rivalry right there. Not a blood feud, but it's a rivalry nonetheless between two heels trying to outdo one another. And yes, if you want to think about it in another feud, you can say that I'm drawing inspiration from Baron Corbin and Bull Dempsey back in NXT. Perhaps. But that's how you get all three of these different parts of the Raw 6 established on this first week of Monday Night Raw. Now, I'm not going to book everything here, but going into the second week, I'm just going to book till SummerSlam, essentially. Going into the second week now, you have a big time thing established with Cedric Alexander and Ricochet and then the club. So you're going to have Ricochet and Cedric Alexander in a tag match going against Gallows and Anderson. This is where Cedric Alexander shines. This is where Cedric Alexander gets the pin for his team, because Cedric Alexander is going to show he is a star player. He is an A+ player in a B+ world. So he is going to outshine everyone in this match, including Ricochet. Cedric Alexander is going to hit the lumbar check on Carl Anderson and take us home Country Road, West Virginia, the place where I've gone, whatever the song lyrics are. So then after the match, AJ Styles basically is upset. He's got to be upset. His boys just got beat by Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. But then this is where things get interesting. AJ Styles tries to put a wedge in between them. And you kind of seen something like this similarly on WWE television lately, with Bayley trying to put a wedge between Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss. Except here is where the wedge gets interesting. AJ Styles essentially grabs a mic and over the mic goes on to say something along the lines of, well, hey, Ricochet, you didn't get that pin. Cedric Alexander got that pin. Cedric Alexander beat the club. You couldn't beat the club, but Cedric Alexander could. So why are you the United States champion? If I was the United States champion and one of my partners done beat me, I would let that partner have a United States championship match. So Ricochet, knowing Ricochet, he'd just be like, you know what? That's a good point. We're going to have the United States Championship on the line next week. It's Ricochet versus Cedric Alexander, Monday Night Raw for the United States Championship. You're building it up big right there. And then they both shake hands in the middle of the ring, and that's the segment for those two of the Raw 6 that week. Moving forward, we have the Viking Raiders once again squashing a tag team. I don't know which tag team it's going to be. Could it be the Colognes? Maybe. Could it be Hawkins and Ryder? Maybe. Could it be local talent? Maybe. Could it be another tag team that doesn't get used on Monday Night Raw? Maybe. It doesn't matter. Nevertheless, the Viking Raiders dominate, and quickly dominate. And then maybe even later on in the night, you could have the Revival on the mic. Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit. Not a lot of bit. Maybe one line where they're just like, oof, I'm glad we're not facing the Viking Raiders. Just a little bit of sprinkle right there. Just a little bit of sprinkle right there on the booking. So that way everyone knows, oh snap, the Raw Tag Team Champions are afraid of this dominant tag team. Just a little bit. Just put a little bit of doubt in the minds of the Raw Tag Team Champions. And that's what the Viking Raiders do on this second week. Moving forward now, we're going to have the last part of this, the Raw 6 on this episode. You have Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Now, Cesaro and Sami Zayn is a very interesting thing because you don't want to give away this whole anything you can do, I can do better gimmick too many times in a row because people will get bored of it. It's very simple. People get very bored of it very, very fast. So what you want to do then is you want to have Cesaro essentially come to the ring and defeat someone from Sami Zayn's past that Zayn had a lot of trouble with. Now, perhaps it could be Corbin. Corbin just had a big-time title match against Seth Rollins, and, well, you know what's happening in Extreme Rules. I ain't got to explain it to you. But Corbin obviously isn't going to win in this storytelling of it anyways. So maybe you could have Cesaro defeat Baron Corbin, and then bada bing, bada boom, Cesaro now has just defeated the former #1 contender for the Universal Championship. That raises Cesaro's stock very, very, very high. And then maybe Sami Zayn can face someone like, I don't know, someone else that you're trying to build up on the card like Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley, let's see, Braun Strowman, somebody else on this card that you want to build up because Sami Zayn would take the L right here. Sami Zayn would take the L to whoever you put him against. Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, whoever it is that you want to put him against. You put him in there and you have him lose. And then you have Cesaro laugh that Sami Zayn lost. Similar to what happened in week 1 of this whole story. Sami Zayn laughed at Cesaro losing to Aleister Black. So you want to have that come right back at you again. But this time, it's Cesaro who's going to laugh at Sami Zayn later in the night whenever Sami Zayn comes over the mic backstage in an interview. And that'll wrap up the Raw 6 for the second week. Now, moving into the third week of things, you're going to have the Viking Raiders go against a more experienced team, not really a no-name team this time. So maybe this is where you have the Viking Raiders defeat a better team, maybe the Usos. I don't know if you want to give away that Usos versus Viking Raiders match on TV, but if you do, the Viking Raiders defeating the Usos, hey, I'm just saying, that'd make them #1 contenders in my eyes. So you have the Viking Raiders defeat the Usos, and then over the mic, don't have them talk that long. Just have Rowe or Hanson come over the mic and go, Revival, you're next. Maybe not that dialogue, because then you get the Goldberg relations, and then, that ain't good. But nevertheless, you understand, they're going to call it the Revival very, very quickly. So that is where the Viking Raiders end on week 3. They basically just defeat a bigger tag team. They make the claim known that at SummerSlam, they want those Raw tag team titles. Then we go on now to have Cesaro and Sami Zayn once again. But this time, we switch it up. We're going to have a tag match. Cesaro and Sami Zayn going up against Baron Corbin and whoever Sami Zayn lost against. For the sake of storytelling, we'll just say Bobby Lashley. Why? Because you know what happened a couple months ago with the 6-man tags and all that shenanigans. So we'll have Baron Corbin and Bobby Lashley versus Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Now, this is the part where we're going to have the tag match, but Cesaro and Zayn aren't on the same page at all. They're really going at it whenever they get in the corner. Blind tags happening left and right. They're not really a team. They're more so two singles guys coming together, trying to both win. But there's beauty in that because they pick up the win because they try to outdo each other. Maybe a haluva kick in the corner, and then as the guy's selling out, Cesaro pop up European uppercut, and then 1, 2, 3. He stole the pin from Sami Zayn, or vice versa. Have one guy steal the pin from the other guy, and that's how you continue to show, hey, we just won together, but I don't like you. You just took that from me. That was my moment you just took from me. So have that little dynamic, and then that's where you end it for week 3 with these two. Moving forward now, we're going to have the United States Championship match on this episode of Monday Night Raw between Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. But we're not going to have a finish. We're going to get to the point where Cedric Alexander, after a great, maybe 15-minute match, definitely 2 segments at least, we're going to have Ricochet get caught with the lumbar check. Ricochet gets tossed up. Boom! Lumbar check connects. Everyone and their mother is going to be like, oh my God, Cedric Alexander's about to become the United States champion when the club hits. The club slides into the ring. AJ Styles isn't going to let Cedric Alexander do what he couldn't. He's not going to let Cedric Alexander defeat Ricochet for the United States Championship. So the club's going to attack. They're going to beat the holy hell out of these two men. They're going to completely tear them down, completely take them out. And then AJ Styles and the club stand tall to end Monday Night Raw over Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. Because this is going to lead us into SummerSlam in 2 weeks. So, well, a week. So, moving on to the last week of Monday Night Raw before SummerSlam. This is where we find out the Viking Raiders are going to be going up against the Revival at SummerSlam. We find out that Cesaro is going to be going one-on-one with Sami Zayn at SummerSlam. And we're going to find out that at SummerSlam, it'll be a triple threat match between AJ Styles, Cedric Alexander, and Ricochet for the United States Championship. Now, at SummerSlam, the way you're going to have this work basically is simple. The Viking Raiders beat the Revival in a very good match because, let's be honest here, the Viking Raiders are a great tag team. They can put on bangers with practically anyone they face. So you're going to have the Viking Raiders go over the Revival. They're the new tag team champions. You're going to have Cesaro and Sami Zayn. We're going to put Cesaro over here because Sami Zayn will always look good. Sami Zayn is one of those guys. He can take a million losses and his credibility never goes down. But Cesaro just came off of that pay-per-view loss to Aleister Black, so we're going to reciprocate that essentially by having Cesaro defeat Sami Zayn. And now, with the triple threat United States Championship match, you have AJ Styles versus Cedric Alexander versus Ricochet for the United States Championship. Now, two things could happen here that I would realistically book. Regardless of who wins between Cedric Alexander and Ricochet, because it's either one of them, they have to pin AJ Styles. If I were booking, this is where you would put Cedric Alexander over in a big way, having him hit the lumbar check on hitting the lumbar check on AJ Styles, and then picking up the win. 1, 2, 3. He never defeated Ricochet, but he is now your new United States champion. The issue with that, the only issue with Cedric going over is we've had a lot of new champions with the United States Championship. So, if you put Cedric over here, people are probably going to be a little angry because there's been a lot of new champions with this United States Championship. We went from Joe to Ray, from Ray to Joe, from Joe to Ricochet, and now from Ricochet to Cedric. However, because of who it is, I feel like everyone will be fine with Cedric Alexander becoming the new United States champion. Now, moving after SummerSlam, it's a very simple process now because you have a lot of toys you can play with in the kitchen. You got Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. Cedric Alexander wants to give Ricochet that United States Championship match, so maybe at the next pay-per-view after SummerSlam, which off the top of my head, I don't know what the pay-per-view schedule is this year, but you maybe have them go one-on-one for that United States Championship. Meanwhile, you have Cesaro and Sami Zayn kind of picking up traction a little bit as a tag team that don't like each other, while at the same time still clearly disliking each other. Maybe a Blue Thunder Bomb after a match, maybe a very European uppercut after a match, but the thing that holds them together is they're dominating the tag team division. And the Viking Raiders are doing the exact same thing, to the point where now we know Cesaro and Sami Zayn are going to be the tag team championship #1 contenders for Monday Night Raw at the pay-per-view. And we have the Viking Raiders versus Cesaro and Sami Zayn. The first real intermingling of the Smackdown 6 other than Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. So boom, that's your next pay-per-view card for the Smackdown 6. You have Ricochet versus Cedric Alexander for the United States Championship, and you have the Viking Raiders versus Cesaro and Sami Zayn for the tag team championships. Now, Ricochet loses and Cesaro and Sami Zayn lose. So you keep your champions the same at this pay-per-view. However, after Ricochet and Cedric, they still shake hands. And now you have the Viking Raiders go over big by later in the night, after they open the show and defeat Cesaro and Sami Zayn. Later in the night, as Ricochet and Cedric Alexander are shaking hands, the Viking Raiders obliterate your United States champion and the one and only Ricochet. So now we're building towards the Viking Raiders versus Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. At the same time, Cesaro and Sami Zayn are frustrated at the fact that they're once again being overlooked because they just got a tag team championship opportunity. They don't want to go back to singles competition now because they realize if they put that ish aside, they can have an opportunity at greatness. So Cesaro and Sami Zayn start melding and meshing a little bit more. You have Ricochet and Cedric Alexander starting to team up a little bit more. But on weekly television, now you're at a point where you can easily start manipulating the cards around these 6 men. I'm talking triple threat matches. I'm talking about one-on-one matches with somebody at ringside for both men. There's so many opportunities that you can create here. Cesaro versus Cedric Alexander. Cesaro versus Ricochet. Ricochet versus Rowe. Ricochet versus Hanson. Cedric Alexander versus Sami Zayn. Cedric Alexander versus Hanson versus Rowe. Whoever. You can start intermingling all 6 men together, and all 6 men are going to elevate that United States Championship and the Tag Team Championships. Because at any point, if Cedric Alexander gets defeated by, say, a Cesaro or a Sami Zayn or a Hanson or a Rowe, they're going to have a United States Championship opportunity. Or if you have a tag team defeat Hanson and Rowe in tag action, hey, that's the United States champion. It's credibility. Nobody loses here. You have 6 players that can build up Monday Night Raw together. Now, do I think WWE is going to do this? I hope so, because Paul Heyman's one of the best minds in professional wrestling history. I hope we get a new Smackdown 6 in the year of 2019, but with the Raw 6. And that's just how I do it. Now, I've never made a video like this before, guys. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys enjoyed it. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, because if you leave a like, I know that I should do more of these. I had a blast doing this. It's all off the top as well. Nothing scripted here. Everything just came off the top of my dome. I wrote a tweet last night, like around 5 in the morning. I wrote a tweet talking about this, and then I was like, hey, I'll make a video on it, whatever. And going off the top of the dome, everything unscripted, I just woke up, I recorded the video, and here we are. But nevertheless, guys, that'll about wrap it up for this one, though. If you are new, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're on the road to 11K. Remember, subscribe to that bell so every single time we upload. And as always, and forever, take it easy, though, guys. Peace.